Hello, welcome to Asinine.
Why do you get to say it?
Hello everyone, welcome. This is Asinine. I'm Christopher Powell, and just reminding you that as soon as you're born, you start dying.
That's awesome, Chris. Very gloomy and doomy. So I think as soon as we're born, we are also subjected to the shit show of reboots from our past.
What's your name?
Excellent segue, Matt. And to think I was hungry for cake.
Thanks, Brant. Jesse?
Hello, my name is Chris. I copied off this paper. I don't actually know.
Oh, that's true. You're a copycat.
That's the problem with all having the
Jesse.
same books.
We're here today to discuss reboots. And I think we should talk about the most epic reboots that have been rebooted 1,000 times. Batman.
They're
And
epic?
I would say
Actually,
they're
I think
epic
that's
stories. They're the
red.
definition of epic stories.
Yeah.
You've got a hero
The first reboot of Batman, of course, being the classic 1960s
Adam West.
Adam West live action. The second reboot being the Michael Keaton and Jack
Nicholson.
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 Nicholas.
That's good.
I always say Nicholas. I always say Nicholas.
I was about to say
Damn
that.
it, he's a golfer.
That's
Golfer.
exactly what I was going to do.
There should have been that. Batman should have ended after that one because those two, the first Batman,
Well, I disagree.
the first Batman was great.
Well,
But-
first of all, the 90s cartoons were a staple of my childhood. And I am glad that they made those, which would be the next reboot. And then, of course, we have the Christian Bale, Heath Ledger reboot.
So, do you really consider something like a cartoon a reboot, or is that a move to a different medium?
It's a reboot because it doesn't, the facts of the movie that are not included in it. So like for instance, I haven't watched these, but the Star Wars Rebels cartoon that are out right now, they include the movies as part of the background of that series, but I didn't think the 90s cartoon one did. It had its own separate timeline.
And there's the Joker's Last Laugh that just came out. It's supposed to give a backstory to the actual Joker, more in depth, where he came from, how he became the Joker. You can watch it on iTunes or anything else.
I hadn't heard about that.
But it looks really good because it's super dark. And I think that's where I think reboots can be successful, is where the Jack Nicholson one was funny, but it wasn't really dark. It has some dark humor in it, but it was more like a dark comedy.
So maybe what's going on is that we're really just, every time we have a sense or need for nostalgia, we reinvent a story through the lens of our modern perspective, and so the more grim or more dramatic retellings are reflective of the culture's feeling at the time.
I would say that's true. I think that's why a lot of the reboots have tended to have this quote-unquote gritty, kind of darker feel to them.
Maybe
That's like
even a sense of a slight anti-hero twist.
Exactly.
Except
Make the heroes a little bit less heroic, a little imperfect.
a little more human.
Mm-hmm. So.
Well, I mean, Marvel's certainly more lighthearted, but the characters within them are certainly a lot more three-dimensional. They're all flawed in their own unique ways.
The number of PG-13 movies that are out right now that are rebooted drives me crazy.
So that's just a marketing thing because it increases the available audience.
But we're talking about reboots. So Ghostbusters, reboot on Ghostbusters. It was super cheesy, super almost cartoony. It was just it was almost too lighthearted, whereas at least in the original Ghostbusters, you had adult humor. This new Ghostbusters played the children way too much, and I think a lot of reboots do that. They cater to a lower level audience, like we've given up on the movies.
Well, maybe not that we've given up on the movies, but maybe there's just a lowest common denominator thing that they've figured out in terms of reaching the mass market. What makes the most money tends to be the driving factor behind any decision.
And I think actually this is where I disagree with your earlier point, Brant, about it's, we have this pang of nostalgia, let's reinterpret. I think some reboots might have that, but I think right now what we're currently going through is a is actually just kind of a money grab by the studios. It's like,
Or
oh, people like
A
reboots.
creative drought. in a
Yeah,
sense.
and so, well, I'm sure there's a lot of creative stuff going on through the internet, but the big budget movie studios, they've structured their model, their business model around having these tentpole films that pay for the entire effort of the whole studio for the whole year. So they have to make these big budget movies, and they have to succeed. So that means they go the safe route. They go to the things that they know will sell, which are those reboots.
Sure. I mean,
What's
I think
that?
that always happens to some degree because studios have to make a decision that is safe in terms of their monetary input.
So I think something we should do is let's go down a list of reboots that we would number from 1 to 5. Like I would say on the Batman reboots, I'd give them like a 4.
So some of the
Five-
Batman
five being
reboots,
the
like in
best?
which ones?
Yes, five being
But
the
which
best.
Batman reboots? Because you've got the more
Yeah.
recent
I'm
Batman
talking about,
versus
like,
classic
Superman.
reboot.
You've got
I'm
your-
talking about well,
the Christopher Nolan reboots.
I think we're talking about from 1989. I think that's when Batman first came out, and Batman 2 was in 1991. I think.
yeah, I'm talking about like not like Batman Forever, or we could talk about
Yeah,
those,
we're not even
but-
talking about the Val Kilmer and George Clooney Batmans.
Yeah, those don't even make the
What?
radar.
They-
We're counting
George
the
Clooney did
series.
Batman?
You can see how far under the
this.
radar they slipped.
Now, please, like you know,
Is he just like trying to channel Arnold
You know,
Schwarzenegger or something?
No,
with bad
well,
acting
he was
skills?
because he was in Batman. He was in Batman Forever. He was Mr.
Batman
Freeze.
Forever.
Oh,
He was
really?
Mr. Freeze,
He was
yeah.
Mr.
Oh, I
Freeze.
just thought
That's what I'm
you were
saying,
doing a
now,
George
please.
Clooney
Like that was
version
one of
of
his
him.
lines.
What sucks is you take one of the greatest actors of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you put him in a shitty movie and make him a shitty
great
character.
actor.
I mean, how bad can you get? You can't even do it with a bunch of A-list Hollywood stars.
But in that movie was super
Yes.
PG. Like that was almost G. You could have listed it as G because nothing adult fun film
Well,
was in
and
there
that was
for us.
also after Tim Burton left the franchise, right?
Oh yeah,
Because he
that
did
wasn't
the
by
first
Tim Burton.
one, and I feel like they were trying. That was like the studio's idea of how Tim Burton would make a film. I don't know.
So that's Batman. How do you guys feel about Spider-Man?
Oh, that was so stupid. I hated that.
I think the thing that was frustrating about it was that the first one was, of the Sam Raimi ones, was actually I thought it was quite good.
I
The second
liked
one
it.
was a decent film
It was
too.
okay.
The third one had a
Awful.
lot of studio influence and upset Sam Raimi.
So quick.
And then they rebooted the franchise almost literally right after.
For
They
those-
didn't even give it time to digest and kind of live in its own sort of
Well,
life.
and
and-
wasn't
and-
that part of the problem? Part of the problem with that was the contract that Sony had with Marvel, because if they didn't put out a Spider-Man movie every so many years, they would lose the rights to the
Right.
Spider-Man franchise.
I mean, that's one thing, sure,
And
you're
now-
being forced to overdo it, but the studio also had other things, especially in the third movie, like
Yeah.
they insisted on extra villains and all these things that made, I think, the story very messy.
Right.
And,
But the reboot is a
the
function.
reboot, okay.
But now there's another reboot because Marvel got the rights back, so we have another Spider-Man.
Yeah.
In like a decade's time, we
And
went through
another Green
three
Goblin.
Spider-Mans.
Yeah. And I think another point to that too, for those diehards out there, Sam Raimi's an excellent writer. Jess and I are in love with him because he was Evil Dead. And so you take somebody that,
Which is actually another reboot that we don't have
Yeah.
on our list.
yes.
No, it is, but I
So
don't
you
know,
take
is that a
somebody-
reboot or is that a
you take-
continuation? Because it seems like it's a direct sequel to the movies.
But they're
actually.
rebooting the series, and they have the Ash vs. Evil Dead. If we're gonna have, we also have Star Wars on the list. If we're gonna have Star Wars on the list, Evil Dead at least needs to be talked about in the conversation, just because it's great. And
That's true.
it's-
Because
No, it does
I
fall
put
into the
Star
same
Wars
category,
on
I
there
think.
because I maybe just to kind of pile on to Star Wars, the new The Force Awakens. Because the problem with that is, it seems to me, just watching it, like they went out of their way to try to ignore the prequels as much as possible and act like they didn't happen, and then also just like rehash the originals as much as possible.
It seemed to me like
And
The
so-
Force Awakens was episodes 4 and 6 in a big mashup.
Yeah, well, yeah, and like a
Story-wise.
kind of almost like a reboot. With,
Yeah.
but there's like, no, this happens after.
Right.
And
you need a bigger Death Star.
Right.
And you need
Well,
You know,
to me,
it's-
that
Darth
was
Vader
super corny.
version 2.0.
Yeah, and I
and
feel like it hurt it Sorry, Matt.
You're fine. I think the world Death Star and taking out all of the Republic in one movie, it's crazy to me because then you have no Republic. They destroyed the planets that the Republic was on. Then they destroyed the world Death Star, which again, there's like one acute point that they had to run to blow up an entire planet.
Mhm.
And to me, it's just I like the fact
Well,
that
that's
they.
If anything, the destruction of the world planet superstar or Death Star was less believable than the original
Yeah.
Death Star thing because they had a bigger fleet in the original Star Wars. And they only had like what 4 X-wings or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
And-
basically nothing going on. They just slipped in and planted a few bombs, and I guess that whole place was really.
And they blew up an
Sensitive.
entire planet
And Luke was really good.
that
at shooting.
had inside of that planet had an entire star.
Sorry about that.
Because when the planet exploded, it turned into the star that it had sucked inside of itself.
Brent went, Matt, we have no idea where Brent went. He's going to be back soon. After these messages?
We'll be right back.
We'll be back with you after this break.
Or we just want to wrap
What
this
are you
up?
talking about?
Yeah.
Do we need him to wrap this up?
No. I don't know. That was the one with the timer.
No, I think we're good. We're segueing it. We're
Oh, that was-
picking
Oh,
back
okay.
up. So we're
So the thing that I
No,
wanted to
the
talk
time-
about just before we jumped off of the reboots, I mean, I think we agreed that maybe there's a creative drought. Maybe we agreed that, that there's a reinterpretation going on. But is there a value to doing the reboots? Like, is there something that they provide us that is maybe useful?
here's and
Yes and no.
Here's my thing on reboots. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing because we all want our kids to experience what we experienced, and I think it's a good segue
Should we
from one
want
gen.
that?
Well, what I'm saying is it's a good segue from one generation to the next generation. There's something about showing your kids the old 1978, 1980s, 1990s Star Wars. You know what I mean? I think it's good whether
Well, sure,
whether it's
there's
books,
a
whether it's
sense of shared experience
Star
there
Wars,
that you want to have in terms of making a
cartoons.
connection with your children.
I think that's a good connection, but I think it's also nice for them to experience something new in their generation, something for them to go wait in line for. Like we never got to experience Star Wars right when it came out in theaters, like our parents did.
Right. So my counter to that would be,
I don't think you can re-experience it the same way.
yeah, and they got to see Star Wars, and it was this big cultural event. We got to see Jurassic Park and Independence Day, which was a big culture. Those are big, impactful
right.
things, and I think it's better for the next generation to have their own Independence. I guess I don't know what that would be if there is anything. You could maybe say,
Yeah, Avatar might have been a close one.
yeah,
For
that's true.
Avatar. Might have been a good one.
So, those are the experiences that are like the original premiere of Star Wars
They're more like it than anything we can provide
than a
providing
new
nostalgia.
another Star Wars coming out.
No,
That's-
I agree 100%. All I'm saying from the emphasis of reboots for the fact of feeling like this isn't just going to be a money grab, saying, hey, it's kind of nice to say it's not going to be the same exact experience, but it's something that they can take with.
Right, but I mean, in that sense, it's almost more for the adults or the older people who are pining for something like they left behind in their childhood, and maybe it's like grasping at straws that you can't really get a hold of anymore.
Well, it makes me feel okay spending $13 per ticket to go see something that's a reboot. You know what I mean? See something I've already seen a million times.
But certainly safer feeling.
Yeah, I mean, at least I can justify the $13 at movie prices than the $150 you spend on drinks and popcorn and whatever else that you need in there. That's
It's gotten that
astronomically
cheap, has it?
Oh man, it's
I
crazy.
need
Well-
to- I need to go again.
On that note, Jesse, you want to take us out?
Yeah, because I think this has just gone on too long. To summarize everything, I think reboots suck. And I'd rather you listen to us now than in a couple years when we can actually make a good show.
Not only that, I would hate to see what happened if somebody rebooted us.
Yeah, this is Jesse with Asinine. We promise not to set a timer on the next segment. Thank you.